Hello, today's November 18th, 2015. I'm going to go over the JSDesktop application as well as our NinjaTrader add-on. So we're going to take a look at the S&Ps today. Always looking for what is the condition of the market. The market state condition for the S&Ps is neutral digestion. We know that that's a state where we can expect some sideways momentum, kind of a balanced bias, lower volatility in general, but when this condition transition, it is the precursor to a breakout. So we can wind up to breakout. So we've got two potential things that can happen: more digestive action, or that's the precursor to a breakout. So what's the structure of the current condition? Well, we've got a market that's in neutral, but we do have good trending ability. So that's always an interesting tell when the market's in sideways, especially when it's coiled up. And we have currently the R level at the midpoint of the critical range. The R level is the over-under number. It's the sentiment bias, kind of the flip level for the day. And so today in the S&Ps, the R level is in the middle of the critical range. So that's a special situation. You know, things are balanced. This coil is winding up. If the R level was below the market, it gives us more of a positive tone, or if it's above the market, we're going to have a negative tone. But today it's in the middle, and when it's in the middle in a non-trend state, it's a sign that we're coiled up and we might be ready to bust out. Another thing to note, along with the purple ADX, and the purple ADX is telling us that we have some trending ability. So we're always just looking at what's the true facts, what's the foundation for the day. That's what we're identifying here. We can also see, basis the MC value plot, that we're coiled up at the lower end of the MC value. So the MC value is our bounded scale indicator, and we're coiled up right here. So is the market going to break out to the downside into a bear trend, or are we going to bust out to the upside and start to transition positively through the neutral zone? So because we're in the neutral digestive state, because structure is balanced, the R level in the middle of the critical range, we have these strategies. Optimally, if this market's going to continue to coil, it's going to digest within this critical range. If we start to break structure, we'll see the hedge strategy kick in, where we'll get this market will stop coiling and we'll get a trigger. And we typically will get that trigger, at the R level. That's kind of the start of a tell that we may be in a breakout, and if this happens, we would anticipate the market to just hold structure. Again, this is the playbook. So when you're in this state and structure, this is what you do. It's really an if-then statement. And part of this state and structure of a neutral digestive session can be the precursor to a breakout. As the market's coiling action will build power. It's winding up for a move. Typically a sign that sentiment's going to change from neutral to digestive is a trend signal by an early session trend move with no break in positive or negative structure. So if we start to build momentum, if we start to hold positive structure, higher move highs, higher move low, lower move lows, lower move highs, higher move highs, higher move lows, that's the tell. We can use a simple moving average as a tool to really identify this breakout theme. So we have our foundation. Again, trading's like a chess game, and all your technical analysis, setups, profiles, indicator systems, signals, anything that you're using, those are all the pieces, and you're playing the game, and this is the board of the game. This is the foundation. So, this is the structure of the market, and we can see here, we've got here's the structure plotted on an intraday graph. This is pre-regular session open, and here's the R level, upside pivot, downside pivot, defining the structure. So this is price action within market structure. And so you start to get some clarity. And so this is the application with NinjaTrader, where we have this integration. And we also have the ability to show just some major levels, or also some of these minor price points. And so as we're coming into the regular session, we can see that the market has been performing as a digestive trade, and it stabilized off the CR minus, but we also had a breakout signal here which is one of our hedge themes. So buy our breakout. So I'm going to add our alert distance to this metric to show, here's our trigger for our breakout. So at this point, we haven't had, for a breakout, the market needs to start on one side, move to the other. As we come into the session, we never got above that variance. We started to move below. We couldn't get below this, so we're still more digestive. One thing about our critical range, and this is what the critical range looks like. We have our upside pivot, downside pivot, this directional number in the middle, it's kind of a rotational number, and we have these minor levels that define this market structure. And in a coiling action, the market will be contained by these minor levels, and we'll just continue to tighten that coil. Once we get a breach of those, it gives us a tell that, hey, we want to go this direction or not. And so, again, we're a fact focus. Fact focus is prior to the regular session open, we held this support here, and we had this breakout. And so we're leaning on, are we in this theme? Are we going to start to trend higher? And so we want to, this is our story, and we're sticking to it, and they tell us we're wrong. So we're going to look at this low, we're going to look at this positive action, and look at this price structure within market structure, and get on and look to get on a positive trend. And as the market starts to go through the session, at this point, it's a good confirmation that it wants to go higher. We're looking to get on this positive momentum. We know that as long as we're holding, here's our higher highs, higher lows. We're gonna anticipate this structure to work, and that's the price action. But we're also looking at the structure as well. So just as you're looking at price structure, looking at market structure. So as you take out this market structure point, it shouldn't get back underneath this structure point. So we kind of have two dynamics going on: price structure and market structure. I'm put the variances on there. And we can take it, we can remove these minor levels also to see, these distances, because one of the features of this application is it gives us the price segment distance that the market's trading in, and that's what this shows us, that we know that if we're getting a buy signal here, we can anticipate a move into this area. And these variances, what they stem from is kind of an area of influence around an inflection point. And there's always this kind of a zone around of influence. And so that's what we're plotting with the NinjaTrader application, is here's this minor variance. It's kind of like the sweet spot of entry, and then you have this alert distance, which kind of signals, hey, you get through the alert distance, now we're kind of on the positive side of that price map level, or the downside, we're on the negative side. So it's a real important metric, and we can see that either just off the bigger levels, or we can plug in even the minor structure. And so, looking at the price structure, we have a market that is just holding positive structure. So, we're always looking for the tells. And at this point, if the market was going to coil, it would have done a couple things. It wouldn't have, breached this CR plus level. At this point, the market's telling you it wants to go higher, and you need to get on this train. And we're in this theme. We're not coiling anymore. We're done. And so, how do we get on this trend? And as the market comes up through this upside pivot, we're discounting this. We no longer have this sideways expectation. We have an expectation that this market's going to be in more of a trend position. And we're just looking for opportunities to get on this trend. And here right before the Fed, as the Fed minutes are released here, it goes in our favor, and that's typically what happens. And you can see how it just kind of pressed the lower variance. This is those squeeze. That squeeze, where a lot of traders are just giving up. Another thing these variances do is they give you some confidence that that as long as you're within that variance, you're okay. Just because they're chopping around in there, it's not going to shake you out of your opportunity. And then when we do start to take off and it confirms it, jumping on the train, and where can it go? Well, it can go an average price map distance. It can go up, a full segment. And so that's your trade vision. And so here we're coming back into that zone, and they give you another opportunity to enter. You know, again, if you were placing your order too close here, you're going to miss it. You'll get the loser if it goes through it, but you're not going to get the winners. So you need to, you know, being aware of that. And then the market pays out another full APMD. So we had, you know, 2 full average price map distance move in the S&P, and it's still going. And one thing that we know from this work, you know, when we do get a breakout of this, what we call our critical range, we're anticipating a 2-segment move. So we're actually anticipating, you know, our expectation is going to come to this upside target 2. And so today in the S&P, that's at 2092.25. So that's the real trade vision. That, you know, this, you know, when we get this signal here, it's what if this thing starts to hold positive momentum and follows through? What if? Well, what's the tell? Well, the tell is it holds structure. You know, simple as that. And we can add a, you know, here, you know, add a simple moving average is a great tool to identify a possible breakout day. You know, this is just a function of this state and structure. And after we add our breakout signal, you know, is this market just holding a simple moving average? You know, we could just use a trend line here as well. But as long as we are, you know, we shouldn't, there's no thinking that, oh, this, I want to sell this market, it's overdone. No, you know, that's my story, I'm sticking to it. It's just, you know, is this thing going to go? You know, if we read a book about neutral digestive market states with the sentiment balanced, and what's the perfect hedge strategy that's going to play out, it's going to be this, and we're going to anticipate it to look like this. And the market told us it's going to do this here, or it told us, you know, gave us the tell that, hey, there's a potential for this to happen, and we're anticipating that to happen. And as long as it continues to hold this positive structure, we're not thinking about anything else. All we're thinking about, we have a mantra: 2092, 2092. And, you know, they may not get there. They didn't, you know, they haven't followed through. Maybe they're going to fall through overnight. But if we keep our trade vision in segments, you know, how many average price map distance? You know, we at least we want to look for 1. And on a signal from here, we're going for 2. You know, 2 full segments. That's money. You know, so it's, you know, it's understanding the state condition, the structure of that state, and then the inherent strategy themes. What themes are playing out? Right at the regular session open, it told us we're in a breakout. They gave us multiple times to participate, and even at this point, you have perfect clarity. This is, you absolutely, at this moment here, you know for a fact this is no longer true. We're definitely in this theme, and we're here. They gave you an opportunity within our alert distance, and they paid out a full APMD. You know, so, you know, even if you're just waiting, when do I have clarity? When do I want to put my capital at risk? Well, absolutely, here you have clarity. So we're all happy to, you know, have this application that works with the NinjaTrader platform. You can really tweak it out, and, you know, you can see how the minor inflection points give you additional opportunities to kind of work that trade, adjust your stops for position management. So for more information, please go to JSServices.trade, and you can sign up, request a demo, send us your NinjaTrader ID, and any questions you can contact us at info@JSServices.com. Thank you.